The Ministerial.
The next Ministerial nominee.
Want to emphasize on, yes, if there's anything you think has been omitted that you want us to know about you, this is an opportunity. And after you've done that, then you'll take a few questions from the distinguished senators. Relax, this is a gender-friendly chamber, and I'm sure you will enjoy your time with us.
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, Your Excellency, Deputy Senate President, Your Excellencies, Principal Officers of the Senate, distinguished senators from Kaduna State, Senator Suleiman Hunkwi, Senator Shehu Sani, Senator Danjuma La. Distinguished senators, good afternoon. I need to start, Your Excellency, by paying gratitude to the Almighty Allah for this golden opportunity that I've been granted, but also paying gratitude to our President, President Muhammadu Buhari, for nominating me and for the opportunity that I have to stand before you today. I also need to put on record gratitude to my late father, Malam Yahya Hamza, because it is as a result of the kind of upbringing that he has given us that I am having this opportunity today. I would like to also place on record gratitude to the organization that I am working with, the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. My name is Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed. I'm the Ministerial nominee representing Kaduna State. Your Excellency, I'm an accountant by profession. I have a first degree in accounting from the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. I graduated in 1981. I also have a master's in business administration. I started work in the Kaduna State Ministry of Finance as a young finance officer. After spending 2 years, I moved to the Nigerian External Telecommunications Limited, which later transformed into NEITI. I spent 18 years working in NEITI and NTEL, rose to the rank of Deputy General Manager Investment and Treasury in NITEL, was transferred to NTEL as a Deputy General Manager Finance, and I rose to the rank of the Chief Finance Officer. I spent 5 years in NTEL as a Chief Finance Officer. After NTEL, I was appointed as the Managing Director, Chief Executive of the Kaduna Investment Company. I spent just 2 years there before I was appointed by the President to head the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI. NEITI is a subset of a global initiative, the EITI, whose philosophy is trying to ensure that the wealth from natural resources is used for sustainable economic development and poverty reduction in resource-rich countries. Since I assumed duties in NEITI, we have done quite a number of things to bring up the EITI process in Nigeria up to the requirement of international standards. In March 2011, we were adjudged an EITI compliant country. That is, after several years of the country trying, within 3 months we were able to achieve that. And also in May 2013, the EITI declared Nigeria as the best implementing country out of 35 resource-rich countries. This we did by producing good quality audit reports of the oil and gas and the mining sectors, as well as a unique accountability audit that has not been done by any EITI implementing country. Each of these reports, Your Excellency, shows information on financial flows of the oil and gas and the mining sectors. It also has information on the volumes of crude oil and minerals that are mined. The accountability audit covered a number of government institutions, including some special funds. And this audit was a groundbreaking audit. It revealed how much has flown into these funds, how the funds are being utilized, and also we covered a few states. We started by covering 9 states, and that also was very informative. In the course of the audit, we found that the states were largely dependent on revenues flowing from the Federation. The internally generated revenue of the states that we covered, 9 states, was so low. It was really very, very disturbing. We have, during the course of our audits, recommended several issues that require reform in the oil and gas as well as the mining sector. I'll just give a few examples. For the oil and gas sector, we have recommended that the crude oil swaps should be stopped because they were not cost efficient, and I'm glad to say that one of the first things that the new GMD of NNPC has done was to actually pull back those swap arrangements, and they are trying to put in place new ones, and we hope better ones. We also have been reporting consistently that the dividends from NLNG to NNPC, that's the liquefied natural gas business, have not been remitted to the Federation account since 2005, when these dividends were accruing. And I'm happy to state also that in July this year, the first dividends from NLNG was paid to the Federation account. In the mining sector, we recommended that there is a requirement to have a unique fiscal regime for the solid minerals industry in our country, and I'm glad to say that the Minister of Mines and Steel took that up very quickly and reported to the National Economic Council, and as we speak, there is a fiscal regime that is being worked for improvements in the mineral sector. The Minister of Mines and Steel also, based on our recommendations, reviewed the royalty rates going up, and the new rates are already implemented. Mr. Senate President, I want to make an appeal that whatever happens during the course of this confirmation or after it, I want to make an appeal on behalf of NEITI and its stakeholders, an appeal to request that the NEITI audit reports be considered on the floor of this revered chamber, because there are a lot of information that is meant for the oversight function of the Senate and the House of Representatives, and these reports have not had that privilege. I hope during the 8th Senate that this will start. I also want to make a commitment that I will, if confirmed by this chamber, to the best of my ability, put in my best efforts and ensure that everything I do will be with high levels of integrity and transparency, and that I will be accountable to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Senator.
I'm Isiaq Adeleke, Osun West. Madam Nominee, illegal mining has resulted in the nation's loss of about 8 trillion naira every 2 years. What will be, in your view, we should do to curb illegal mining? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Alindume, representing Borno South. Madam Nominee, we are all aware of the struggle that you have been engaged in when you are running NEITI to ensure transparency in the extractive industry generally, and particularly the loopholes in our oil and gas sector that was not only bleeding this country, but almost like making the effort of the government to collapse. Now that you are in a better position to plug those leakages, and now that you know, and I'm happy you're saying that you have some reports that will assist this 8th Senate in effectively discharging. Can you just share with us one of those leakages that, for example, this Senate will quickly go and block so that we do not continue bleeding?
Senator Lidani.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Joshua Lidani, representing Gombe South. Madam Nominee, I would like to commend you on your nomination as a Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, you've served as a Director of NEITI since 2010. 2010, yes. Now, in the course of your service as a Director of NEITI, have you ever had any occasion to blow the whistle or to call attention of the government to some things that are going on that are not right, or they are shady, or they are not transparent throughout the time you have been in NEITI? Secondly, I'd like to ask you about the role of tax consultants. We have agencies that are dedicated for revenue generation, like the customs, like FIRS, and so on. Is it right for any government to appoint consultants for the purpose of tax generation when we have these agencies that are dedicated for that purpose? And thirdly, you have served as Director of NEITI, and I presume you are still a Director of NEITI. It is the requirement of the Constitution that anybody who is nominated as Minister of the Federal Republic should resign his appointment. Have you complied with that constitutional requirement? Thank you.
John. Yeah, Mr. President, my name is John Owen Eno, Cross River Central. Very quickly, Madam Nominee, you've been working with NEITI as head of that organization. How challenging is it heading an organization like NEITI in a country like Nigeria? Number two, how much of the outcome of your work in NEITI rubs on Nigeria's perception abroad in terms of the state of corruption? And I say this because you look at this side by side, Nigeria's rating by Transparency International. Can you use that to measure the success of your work in that body? And finally, how proud are you, having worked in NITEL for 17 years, given what became of that body? How proud are you? Thank you.
If you can take this set of questions now.
Very much, Mr. President. Distinguished Senator Ishaka Adeleke, illegal mining is one of the menace that as a country we have tried to address. But personally, I think as long as we keep having the mindset and the view that this activity is illegal, we will not succeed. The illegal mining is actually a way of livelihood for a large number of our populace. So if we look at it in that light, then what we will want to do is to start thinking about how do we make these miners practice better mining in the various areas where they are. How do we help them by giving them improved tools and implements so that the environment is not degraded, so that our water is not polluted, so that what they earn from these mining activities actually sustains their livelihood? If we take it from that angle, then we will be more inclined to bring in development to those areas where this illegal mining is concentrated. So rather than having the miners migrating from point to point, following wherever there is a find, they will stay in those areas, they will work more responsibly, and they will want to protect their environment. So what I will urge is for us to recognize that they exist, and they are our citizens, and they have a right to livelihood, and we should seek for ways and means to support them. That is not to say that the foreigners that are in this sector should be encouraged in these illegal activities. If we want to address what the foreigners have been doing, what we need to do is to provide an alternative for these small miners to sell their mined minerals and metals legally. We can, by doing that, anticipate and maybe put up a fund for that will support a mineral buying scheme, put a process where these miners will go to a mineral buying center and sell their minerals and get good value so that they are not exposed to the foreign nationals that pay them pittance and it's not enough for them to keep a livelihood. Senator Ali Ndume's question is, what loopholes will I suggest to be covered so that we'll stop the bleeding in the oil and gas sector? The oil and gas sector at the moment has a lot of leakages. One of the major leakages for me is the management of our domestic crude oil. Currently, as a country, we allocate 445,000 barrels of crude oil per day to the National Oil Company, NNPC. This crude oil is meant to be for refining in our 4 refineries, but we all know that refineries are operating far below their refining capacity. The NNPC employs crude oil swaps, oil processing arrangements to provide fuel that we need in country. These are very major areas of leakages that I'm glad that the GMD NNPC has started looking at. Another major area is the cost to us as a country of cash calls, how much we pay as a contribution to the joint operating arrangements. The bills are very, very high. As a country, we actually don't have the capacity to ascertain that the cost that we're being invoiced is actually real. That we are continuously owing our operating partners for these joint venture cash calls. And to make it worse, we have special accounts for cash calls. But we still go ahead and use those funds for other purposes other than cash calls. This predisposes us more to being unable to meet these cash call obligations, with the intended consequences of having to borrow from the operators. We're going to different kind of borrowing arrangement, MCAs and so on, and we collateralize this borrowing with future crude. If you look at the reports of NEITI, you will find that the government lifting is getting lower and lower, and liftings that are related to debt services is getting higher and higher. This is something we must address. I would recommend we should revisit these joint operating arrangements. They have been there for long. We need to renegotiate them. As a matter of fact, it is possible for us to look at how we can phase out those arrangements and move towards alternative arrangements that will reduce our cash call burdens. Distinguished Senator Joshua was asking whether we have blown the whistle in any way. And I'd like to say NEITI has done that several times. Part of the ways is on the unremitted dividends that NNPC has been collecting from NLNG, that it has not been remitting to the Federation. Also, you also asked, what is the role of tax in development? The role of tax in development is fundamental. When a nation depends, like we do, on rents from oil and gas, we are a rentier state, and the citizens don't feel an obligation to hold the leaders accountable because we're just collecting rents. Tax is very important. The Inland Revenue Service sometimes uses tax consultants. I will support that only to the extent to build capacity or to start a new process, but after that, we should develop the capacity to do the work ourselves. Still also on NEITI, I have been the ES of NEITI since November 2010. As I stand before you, I am still the ES of NEITI, but if I'm confirmed today or tomorrow, I will send in my resignation letter. It has been working also. The fourth question I had is that how challenging has it been working in NEITI? It's been very, very challenging. We work in an environment where the companies are reluctant to provide information. The government agencies are not also very willing to provide information, so we have to chase each of those parties to get information to make sure that the information is credible, and we use this information to produce the reports. Nigeria's participation in the EITI has not positively impacted on our corruption perception index, and I must say that that is one of the very, very challenges that we have, and one of the challenges that the current administration has taken up head on to address. There is a lot of corruption in Nigeria. There's corruption in other countries, but the uniqueness of what we have here is that we have corruption with impunity, that people commit offenses and they go scot-free. But this administration has shown that it will not be business as usual, that whoever commits or errs on any particular process will be held responsible. I worked in NEITI for 18 years. I am very sad at the state in which NEITI has become today. I wish that NEITI was there for me to tell my children and my grandchildren I worked in that company, but it is not there today. There was a lot of things that were not done by NEITI, including several botched privatization processes, some management agreements that were done also that helped to bring the organization down.
Senator Tayo Alasho-Adura, Ondo Central. I have a few questions for the nominee. From your experience as an accountant, as an auditor, we have seen so many audit reports in this country that at the end of the day, one cannot be proud of, with conflicting figures coming out after the audit, with no specific answers proffered, for what should be done to reduce or to eliminate, the cancer that was being audited. What would you do, if confirmed as a minister, to ensure that this type of thing does not repeat itself in this administration? The second question is about, again, your experience over the years working with government in so many areas, especially industrial areas. We have traveled far and wide, and we have found out that in most of these countries that have developed rapidly of recent, e.g. Dubai, that was a desert some few years ago, the matter of free trade zone was introduced to these countries, and today they are doing very well. What is your take about free trade zones in Nigeria to boost our economy? I'm particular about this because, in those states where I come from, we had a free trade zone that was created by a government under which I served. And today, nothing is happening at that free trade zone. So what will the federal government do to boost and create more free trade zones in this country to ensure that the economy of this country is boosted? Thank you.
Senator Oji.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is C.A. Oji. I represent Abia Central. Madam, my question is based not on your profession, but because you are an intelligent woman. And people like you normally offer good advice. And when that advice is taken into account, it brings in fruitful results. Now, if you are confirmed, and the Federal Executive Council sets up a committee of which you are a member, and the topic for you will be how to bring back the Chibok girls. What will be your contribution, since you are a woman and the people in captivity are all women? Thank you.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Sani Mustafa from Niger South, representing the good people of Niger South. Madam, my question to you is, what will be your advice in sustaining and achieving Millennium Development Goals of the federal government? 1, Nigeria is at the emerging world market. What areas of concern do you think the federal government can improve in attracting direct foreign investment? Thank you.
Senator Albert Akpan.
Thank you, Mr. President, for recognizing me at last. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Albert. I represent the good people of Akwa Ibom Northeast. Madam, having worked closely with the last PDP administration and considering the call for change by the present administration and considering the progress that we have made as a nation, what do you think we need to do differently to bring about unity, progress, equity, peace, and the prosperity of Nigeria? Number 2, the recent report of the National Bureau for Statistics indicates that Nigeria has a population of about 170 million people, out of which 70 million are unemployed. And projections have also indicated that by 2020, Nigeria has said we will be one of the biggest economies in the world. And the population of Nigeria will be about 200 million. And if we go on this trend, by 2020, Nigeria will have 100 million Nigerians will be unemployed. How will you contribute within the shortest possible time? Since, according to studies, we must create a minimum of 7 million jobs annually. How will you contribute in the shortest possible time to avoid this catastrophe in the country in line with this same gospel of change? You have also indicated that you will be loyal to Nigeria. And I know that one thing we take for granted is the national pledge of Nigeria. As a demonstration of this loyalty and commitment and passion for this country, can you please recite the national pledge?
Ministerial nominee, take the floor for sets of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. May I please seek your indulgence to start with the last question? I'm told, sir, that when the national pledge is being recited, that people should be upstanding, so I'm standing. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be loyal, faithful, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her unity, and uphold her honor and glory, so help me God. Distinguished Senator Tayo Olashore from Ondo State asked a question. He said, as an accountant and also an auditor, as a country, we have conducted several audits, but most of these audits are not having specific recommendations for improvements, and also most of these audits are unheeded. I'd like to state to this distinguished chamber that the NEITI audit report is unique in that regard. It's not an audit in the true sense of the word. It's a process that seeks to find what is wrong and makes specific recommendations for improvement. But I also want to quickly add that the major challenge that NEITI as an organization has is the slow implementation of the recommendations of its audit reports. And I hope that the 8th National Assembly will put paid to that. Most rapidly developing countries have adopted the option of having trade-free zones, and Nigeria should not be an exception. The essence of having a trade-free zone is to concentrate activities in one place, to give relief to the businesses so that they transact very quickly in our country. I'm aware that there are some of these trade-free zones in our country that are not operating the way that they're intended, but if we have the opportunity, if I'm given the opportunity, that is one of the fastest means of bringing about development. Because these zones brings about concentrated development. Apart from the businesses that are operating, there are allied services that develop around the zone that brings about development in the trade-free zone. Distinguished Senator Orji from Abia was asking what I would do if I was put in a committee to bring back the girls. I'd like to state that I'm one of those Nigerians that is really pained about what has happened to the Chibok girls. My two daughters are in this hall today, and I know what it is as a parent to not have your child with you or not even know what state in which they're in. What I will suggest we should do is to concentrate and push the strategy that Mr. President has already started. Our defense and our armed forces are already making significant progress to the fight of Boko Haram, and it looks very much that they will succeed in the very near term. I will support any process that would bring back our Chibok girls. Senator Sani Mustafa from Niger South was asking what I will do in terms of an advice for the sustenance of the MDGs. Nigeria, of course, is an emerging market, and what we need to do is to stay and implement what we had committed to in terms of realizing the 8 MDG goals. We have made progress in some of the goals, but in some areas, especially in education and health, we're very, very far from it. We need to go back to the drawing table. We need to reassess what we've done. We need to identify the gaps and quickly make plans on how to bring up our attainment of the MDGs. Senator Albert also stated that I had worked under the last administration and what I will advise that we should do differently. My suggestion will be that when an audit is conducted, like the NEITI audits or the PwC audits of NMPC, the recommendations that these audits make, and as a matter of fact, the various committee works that this Senate has done and also the House of Reps, that those recommendations should be implemented. That we should not do reports and the reports sit on shelves and just glorify an office, that we should not write reports and white papers sit unattended to and unimplemented. We have done so many reviews. The analysis is on the table. It's already available. We don't have to do any extra work. All we need to do is to take these recommendations and start implementing them. And I'm happy to say that some of these implementations are already ongoing. The National Bureau of Statistics have also seen this very, very scary numbers that by 2020 we will have up to 100 million unemployed youths. If we collectively, as individuals and as a collective, decide to fight corruption and fight impunity, we will not continue to have youths that are unemployed. We will not continue to have a health sector that is degraded. We will not continue to have an educational system that is so bad that our children that come out of schools are not really educated children. What we need to do is to look inwards and to find solutions and to be true to those solutions and stick to them and remain focused in implementing them.
Distinguished nominee, I think we need to just take from the Senator Binta, Masi, and then Senator Rasaki. I think we would, at that point, you can question. Take this, Senator Olujimi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your sensitivity. And distinguished senators, quickly for two things. One, you are the product of the PDP. Two, on loan. Yeah. And the second one is that you are one of the few women that have found favor in this new executive arrangement. I congratulate you. My quick question is simple. You are an accountant, and you are going into a government where corruption, anti-corruption, over-corruption is the sing-song, the mantra. And you will agree with me that over the years, our problem has not been with any other institution other than yours. The accounting practice in Nigeria. Sharp practices, false documents, wrong papers, figures that come out and they don't tally. And you have been part of it. You were also part of the fact that it affected very many of our institutions, like the MTEL and the NEITI. Now, you are going into a government, and anti-corruption is the issue of the day. What will change? What are you likely to do that will promote the anti-corruption stance of the government? What didn't you do when you were there earlier? You need to let us know. The second question, are you a card-carrying member of any political party? And if you are, which of them do you hold? Thank you very much.
Senator Binta.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Binta Masigarba. I represent Adamawa North, Senatorial Zone of Adamawa State. Every Nigerian is competent to handle any responsibility given to him or her as long as he or she can deliver it. So I think I'm not Hajiya Zainab, but maybe she'll answer that question later. Hajiya Zainab, one of the questions I want to ask, or two, there is a decline in the oil price since the second half of last year, and that has led to the decline in government revenue and has caused some certain constraints to the implementation of the budget. What will you think, or what do you think is the best strategy in preventing the non-full implementation of the budget resulting from the revenue shortfall? Secondly, the federal government has declared that the 2016 budget will be designed on the principle of a zero-based budgeting system. And maybe because you are an economist, if you can enlighten us more on what you understand by the zero-based budgeting. Thank you.
Senator Rasaki. Oh, you want to okay.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Madam Nominee, going through your CV as an accountant, what will you do to harmonize the tax regime, multiple taxation between the federal, the state, and the local government? And secondly, what measure will you put in place to attract foreign investment? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senate President. Distinguished Senator Olubumi, you did say that over the years, corruption has permeated the whole of our country, and the accountant is an integral part of it. I agree with you. There is no corruption that will be done without an accountant in the line. But we're not all the same. Some of us accountants have been pointing out and crying ourselves hoarse as to what is wrong and what needs to be done to correct it. And I hope there will be more and more accountants that will join this effort. To promote the anti-corruption stance of the current government, what we need to do, not just as accountants, but as managers of human and material resources, is to be transparent and to be accountable in everything that is placed before us. Distinguished Senator Binta Mashigarba from Adamawa North. Distinguished Senator, the oil price decline has been a real problem for our country. It's a problem such that we're not able to meet our budget. But I like to see it as an opportunity because it's given us a chance to look inwards, to look at the agricultural sector that we have ignored, to look at the mining sector that we have completely forgotten about, to look at our responsibility in collecting taxes and expanding the tax base. So for me, it is a painful process we're going through, but it is a golden opportunity for us to move away from the resource cost which has plagued us for the past 40 years. In 2006, the government of the day has declared that the budget system will be zero-based. What I understand by zero-based budgeting is you're starting from a scratch. You're not taking a benchmark and adding a percentage up or down. You're asking each MDA to detail and defend every expenditure line item. That is the best way to do budgeting. What we've been doing in the past is not actually budgeting. You're given an envelope, and you are required to fit in everything that you have in the envelope. It introduces wastages when the envelope is large, and also it brings about inefficiency. You cannot implement your mandate fully when your budget is too small. The zero budgeting process is a very complex process. It's Herculean, but we need to start it as soon as possible. And maybe the best way to start it is to start it with some selected organizations and then roll it out next year to every other organization. Distinguished Senator Raji Rasaki, you were asking what will we do to harmonize the multiple taxation. As a federation, the states are independent autonomous units, and also the tax laws give the states some authority to collect some certain category of taxes while the federation collects another category. So there must be the meeting of stakeholders, the states, the local governments must all come together, driven by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, so that we harmonize these taxes. Because if anything, it has been detrimental to investments into our country. It has been limiting for foreign direct investments. When taxes are clear and they're not duplicated, people will find it easier to pay taxes. But in addition to that, we must also, as a country, look at how to expand our tax base. As it is now, not many Nigerians are paying their taxes.
Thank you very much, Chairman Amik. Distinguished colleagues, is it the wish of the Senate that Amik can take her leave? Thank you, Mr. Senator. Can take your leave.
Shamsuna Ahmed is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. She is still holding that office, but gave her word to the distinguished senators that the moment she is confirmed as a minister of the Federal Republic, she is relinquishing that job. She has had 28 years of experience in public finance management.